Are Manchester City in a little bit of crisis right now? Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another video. A couple of days removed from Manchester City's defeat against Arsenal in pretty incredible circumstances, and what a pretty incredible game it was. We're going to be talking about Manchester City today because the dust is now settled. Everyone's had their say on the matter and on the game and everything. And whilst it was a massive step for Arsenal, it is, of course, a bit of concern, I think, growing for Manchester City in terms of their injury absences and, of course, losing back-to-back Premier League games and their last three domestic games on the bounce. We're going to be talking about City, we're going to be talking about the game that was and the future that will be, and why it may not be as concerning as what many people are calling out for. But before we go any further, I would like to remind you all to please like the video and also subscribe if you're new. Both things are always incredibly greatly appreciated. Also, get involved in the comment section as well. I'm sure we have a lot of interesting thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, that make for great interesting reading down below in that comment section. So do get involved down there. But without further ado, let's get on with the video. Let's talk Manchester City. First and foremost, I'm just going to say, I don't think this is as big of a crisis what many people are calling out. I really don't. I want it to be the crisis, and I think that's where a lot of the drive from the media stems from, in terms of hoping that there is some sort of crisis going on at Manchester City. Like I say, losing to Wolves in their last Premier League game, and now losing to Arsenal, back-to-back Premier League defeats on the bounce of Pep Guardiola, something that is a rarity since, of course, he's taken over as manager, has sparked a bit of a debate amongst the footballing universe as to whether or not there's a bit of a crisis going on at Manchester City right now. Of course, when you add on top losing to Newcastle in the Carabao Cup, the frustration that seems to have stemmed from Pep Guardiola whenever he does lose. Remember, losing isn't a regular occurrence for him, so of course when it does happen, he is going to be a bit snappy, as he normally tends to be. And that's, of course, how it's panned out. When he's been in post-match interviews, he's been a bit snappy with the interviewer in regard to certain questions. And you can sense the frustration that he doesn't like to lose. Not that, obviously, we all like to lose. But at the same time, when you're used to winning regularly, you really, really do not like it. In terms of the game on Sunday, I've never seen a City side so nullified. I've never seen a City side ever so out of ideas, so to speak. And that was simply for the reason that Arsenal was so good. Don't get it twisted. Arsenal were really good in their approach. May not have been the best on the eye, may not have been the most easiest to watch on the eye, may not have been the most attractive football you'd ever see from Arsenal. But the way that Arsenal set up, the way that Arsenal were defensively solid, which was a big criticism of Arsenal last year, in terms of obviously the way that they lost the Premier League title from the position that they were in, because defensively they just weren't solid enough. It was a massive step forward for the Gunners, and like I say, the way that they neutralised City and neutralised Haaland in particular was outstanding to watch, and it's something that maybe going forward a lot of other teams in the Premier League maybe can take a leaf out of their book of, and maybe try and stop City themselves. I'm going to talk about Arsenal in a later video, because I think that was a massive step forward, not just in terms of winning and getting the 3 points, but I think in terms of a mental block. I think that was massive for Mikel Arteta's side, and it was great to see, obviously, the student turn on the teacher, so to speak, and obviously get the win over his former mentor, I guess you could say, if you want a sort of narrative. But from City's point of view, like I say, it was a bad day at the office. It was a shocking performance, one of the poorest, and massive credit goes to Arsenal for that. You go back a week earlier to the Wolves result. Those results can happen to the biggest and best of teams. Like, I don't care who you are. You could be PSG and dominating your league. You could be Bayern and dominating the Bundesliga as you do. Those results where you take it for granted, it's a bit of a banana skin, the stars align and the underdog prevails, that kind of thing. They happen season after season. What's obviously been a big kick in the teeth this time around is that result has come a week before the Arsenal result, and now City's perfect start to the season has crumbled to 2 defeats on the bounce. The media are driving it, and a lot of other people are driving it as a bit of a crisis at City. And I guess when you look at the injuries that City currently have, it is a crisis in that aspect. Kevin De Bruyne out, Rodri suspended. I'm sure they would have big influences in the Wolves game and in the Arsenal game in particular. I'm sure they would have done. But you know, we shouldn't really feel sorry for City in that aspect, because they've still spent tons and tons of money. They still brought on £170 million worth of talent in 3 substitutions on Sunday. You know, it's not like they haven't spent money, and it shouldn't be like we should feel entirely sorry for them. Yes, they have a ton of injuries. Even the likes of the ones that they're getting back or they've had in and out throughout the season, the likes of your Jack Grealish's, John Stones has been out for the entirety of the season so far. I think he made his return in the past couple of games, Champions League and Premier League from the bench. I think there have been a couple of others as well that have been in and out the side due to injuries and things like that. But they still have a ton of money or big money signings at their disposal in Manchester City, so we shouldn't entirely feel sorry for them. It's not like the massive injury crisis of Liverpool in one specific area a few years ago. It's not like the injury crisis that's happening at Chelsea right now, in which it's affecting all areas, and it's not like it's the injury crisis at Manchester United that is seeing their defence completely wiped out right now. Across that back four that Ten Hag likes to play. There's still a lot of players still at City's disposal. There's still a lot of players that are on big money and of course had to be spent on big money just to bring them over to City in terms of transfers. So I feel sorry for them a little bit in that aspect, but not too much that they shouldn't. They should obviously be beating the likes of Wolves. And again, as Arsenal, City fans will sit there and claim that they always beat Arsenal. It should have been a walk in the park or whatever. Arsenal showed them otherwise, and that's why you can't ever take these games for granted. I think maybe the international breaks come at the right time for City in terms of them having to go back to the drawing board, regroup a little bit. Obviously, I know a lot of their players will be away on international duty, but I think the break for Pep Guardiola's come at a nice time where things are just starting to spiral a little bit in terms of obviously results. I know they managed to claw it back against RB Leipzig in the Champions League, but you would expect City to beat RB Leipzig as they tend to do season after season. Going forward, though, it's not as big of a crisis as what everyone's making out. It really isn't. Like, City are losing Rodri. We've seen how important... If you're ever doubting Rodri's ability, if you're ever doubting the importance of Rodri in this Manchester City side, I think the past couple of games really... or the past few league games really display how important Rodri is and why there should be a huge, huge case for him to win the Ballon d'Or ahead of the likes of Erling Haaland and Lionel Messi, in my opinion. It's not that big of an injury crisis, though, or that big of a crisis in general, though. City, once they get their players back, if they can stay off the injury list, because we've always said about City that City's real test and resolve will be if they get a lot of absentees. If they get a lot of injuries, a few suspensions mixed in, whatever the case may be. We always said that it will affect any and every team. And as you can clearly tell, even Manchester City are not invalid of that argument. So they are experiencing like what a lot of other teams have experienced over the past few years. A ton of injuries and a few suspensions mixed in that aren't helping. I grant you that. But it's not that big of a deal. Like I say, once they get their players back, once January rolls around and they spend another however 100 million or whatever on big name players just to sort of give them a boost towards the end of the season. We know that they'll be in the title race. We know that they'll be in the title hunt come the end of the season. No doubt about it. They're still the favourites in a lot of people's eyes, and they're still the favourites in my eyes because, let's face it, they've been there and done it. Yes, they are missing a few key players right now, but at the same time, we know that they have the strength, they have the mentality to go again. We know this. We know that Pep Guardiola will not rest on his laurels. We know that because they went and spent a lot of money in the summer. They didn't just say, this treble-winning side will continue, this treble-winning side will be amazing going forward and will continue to go from strength to strength. He went, there are still ways that we can improve this team, we can still reinforce this team. Let's go and get a Gvardiol. Let's go and get a Mateus Nunes. Let's go and get a Mateo Kovacic. Pep Guardiola didn't rest on his laurels in that aspect, and he will not let them rest on his laurels going forward. He still has the strength in numbers to obviously get them to a title fight beyond Christmas. The title will not be wrapped up at Christmas time, I can guarantee you that. But then from there, it's all about the strength and mentality. Will Arsenal be there come the end of the season, and will they manage to go one step further? They have the experience now, but will they use that to their advantage? Remains to be seen. Will Tottenham be there? I know they've had a great start to the season, and I know people may be laughing at that, but they've had a fantastic start to the season. They're top of the league right now, going into the second international break of the season. No one was expecting them to get this far. Will Liverpool be there? Solid start to the season. Couple of bad results in recent weeks, not necessarily down to their fault, but we shall see how far this Liverpool side have come from obviously last year. A lot of question marks over a lot of teams. For City, there may be question marks right now, but those question marks I'm sure will soon be wiped off once obviously they get the players back, they refocus, and they go again, as City tend to do. And let's face it, beginning of the seasons, City are known for slipping up from time to time. It's when the run-in starts, it's when the games well and truly matter, in my opinion. I know that all games sort of matter with the way that Man City have raised the bar in recent years, but if you can hold your nerve, particularly in the crunch games, in the final 10 games of the season, more or less, that's when you know that you are Premier League champion material. And City have obviously proven that time and time again. So, it'll be interesting to see, like I say. I don't think it's as big of a crisis as what many people are predicting. I think that once they get their players back, once Pep gets into them, and obviously the new players sort of gel, because let's face it, the new players, they do tend to take some time to gel on with Guardiola, and I don't think we've seen the best of the likes of Kovacic, Gvardiol, and Nunes in particular so far. So it's going to be interesting to see how it pans out. It's going to be interesting to see if things will continue to spiral out of control. Obviously, I hope that it does, because it makes the Premier League more interesting, and I hope City continue to dive deeper into this quote-unquote crisis of theirs. But of course, like I say, it's going to be a big if. It's going to be a big question mark, and I still think City have the mental strength to pull them out of this. And like I said, once they get their players back, I think it'll be a completely different City side than what we're used to. But it's not all doom and gloom, like I say. City have still got a piece of silverware this season in the Super Cup. They're still going strong in the Champions League. Julian Alvarez, I think, has been their player of the season so far. I think Erling Haaland has been Erling Haaland, but I think Alvarez has been just as, if not more important this season, with the amount of goals and assists that he's got altogether. I think he's been excellent to start the campaign off. Like I say, I wouldn't say this is a crisis right now for City, but it is something that is worth keeping your eye on going forward. And like I say, I think the international break has come at the right time for Pep Guardiola, and we shall see what they're going to do when they obviously come back, which I think, if I'm right in thinking, is a game against Brighton. I think they've got a clash against Brighton, and as we know, Brighton, very tough opposition, so that could be a very interesting test for Pep Guardiola's side when we return. But those are just the thoughts, comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, of this guy. I want to know what you guys think. What do you make of Manchester City, Pep Guardiola, the season that's been so far, and the season that will going forward? I'd love to know your thoughts, your comments, opinions, predictions, feelings, whatever you want to call it, in the comment section down below, because I'm sure it'll make for interesting and great reading. Otherwise, hit the like button on the way. I've enjoyed the video. Subscribe if you're new and want to see more content like this. Both things are always very greatly appreciated. And as always, thank you all so much for watching and listening. I've been Fletch. This has been another Fletch Talks video, and I'll see you all again soon in another video or live stream or whatever it may be. Cheers, guys. Have a good day. See you soon.